because this front suspension is different than my other two carts, it's a little bit more challenging than first time around. So I've been studying, and I went and printed some more photographs. I'm really trying to get a feel for the front suspension. Here's a finished view, what it should look like. Try to get it somewhat in scale. Here's another view that helps. And then I've already seen this one. And in the course of printing photos, I came across a few more shots that'll help me when I'm trying to get the body to look the way I want. There's a nice one. Here's one from above. Cute little car. There was also a racing version, special racing version. I think it's a body kit that somebody sold. But here's another racing version without the fenders. So anyway, and there's one more picture there, which I thought was a nice shot. Okay, so where I left off last time on getting this front suspension right was this drawing here. You know, but I really hadn't studied the photos that close, so I did a couple of sketches, you know, trying to figure out where the axle comes through, concept. This one's not the scale. You know, I've got one of Brian's axles here, and I have a Brian spring on the cart that he's working on, so I was able to get some measurements. So I know that it's 3.5 inches from the spring, you know, the arc, the height of the arc, so that helped. So anyway, this was pretty rough. So then I got serious about trying to do a true scale sketch with what I've learned about the height of the spring and where the axle goes through the bottom of the radiator. And then I tried to get it to fit a Cyclekart, at least the height I want. You know, I'm trying to get 28 here and 14 in width. And then I was shooting for around 6 inches off the ground there. Right now the axle's at 7.5 off the ground, and the bottom of the radiator's at 6.5. The configuration is a little bit different than the real car, but you know, hey, it's a Cyclekart. I got to make it work. So I might draw this a little bit larger. Maybe I'll draw it out. I've got a piece of hardboard under here that I started doing a drawing on, so maybe I'll draw this out full size. And because one thing that concerns me is the height of this spring. The spring perch is way up in here, so I need to do a side view of this off of this drawing, and that'll clean up the body height, because it looks like the frame, geez, that's above. Right now the frame splits the height, the center of the hub, which is the way my other Cyclekarts out are pretty much. So I'm a little concerned about the height of that perch there, but a larger drawing, full size, will help put that to rest, and then a side view. So that's looking better. So we'll keep plugging away. I got to do a little bit more. I'm not there yet, so we'll see what happens next. I've been continuing to work on this front suspension design. So you'd seen this sketch where the front axle kind of curves and goes under the radiator, and then the springs come out the side of the body. And then I had done this version in scale, and you can see how the frame is splitting the center line of the axle, which is the same as my other Cyclekarts, and then the spring perch is up here. But the axle still kind of has this shape. That could be a straight axle, and you know, it might be eventually. So then I wanted to go to a larger version, and I got to thinking about this frame design here. In this version, the frame's here, and then, you know, I was going to make the frame come up to the height of the perch. But then I got to thinking that if I bring these frame members all the way up to where the curve starts on the radiator, right here, now the body, when I bring the body up, I'll have a place to just attach it right here and here. And then this would be 1x3, same as the frame. So it would split right in the middle of that. So I could make this little shroud, a radiator. It's kind of hollow and thin, lightweight, but it would slip over the front of this whole structure and butt up against the body on this flat section here. Here I'd bend a piece of steel or aluminum to create the hoop. But this would cover all of this, and you know, the spring and the axle would just exit the side of the body. So I'm kind of heading in that direction right now. So I did a larger version here. This drawing is 3 inches to the foot, and this is a piece of ledger paper, 11 by 17. So I was able to sneak up and get a little closer. I should have put dimensions on this so you could see it, but basically this is 6 inches off the ground. The spring is 15 inches off the ground, and then I came up with these little spring shackles. I've seen this done on another Cyclekart. Of course, it's not how they do it on a full-size car. And right now I'm currently going with this curved axle, because that particular shape, as a mandrel bent piece, is a piece of cake. They could do that no problem. And then I was working on getting the scale looking reasonably decent. So I think that looks all right. That's 28 inches off the ground. And then the width of this body is 28 back with the driver's position. So it's, I'm sneaking up on it. I need to superimpose the frame in here and the perch and the other pieces, just so that maybe I'll make a copy of this and I can white out some of the lines and then just draw the frame without the radiator in the way. So I found a blueprint of sorts of a 1933 Austin 7, which showed the front suspension. And it was actually this drawing that got me going in this direction. You see how the axle kind of swoops down and goes over? Now that's kind of why this one does that. Now the spring is different. This one runs in this arc, where this is a Cyclekart setup. And then these are friction shocks, which I could probably add in here at a later date once I figure out how soft this. I kind of know how soft it'll be from the other Cyclekarts, but I've learned from Johnny Dumfries that you want as much suspension travel in the front as you can muster, because it keeps the wheels on the ground, and sure enough, I got plenty of travel on the monocar, and it handles great. So this is probably a little bit hard to see. The pencil lines aren't that dark, but this is full size. So there's the tire and the axle. I didn't draw the spindle bracket or anything. I know how that goes. Here's I use this to figure out the size of this spring shackle, and I might refine this a little bit. I think it might be just a little bit too long. When you depress the spring, this moves maybe an inch, so it's probably a little on the large size. And then I didn't draw the whole radiator. I just drew this lower half up to the height of this steel brace here. This is like a rubber block. I'll have a couple of bolts here. This will be all welded, and you can see how I'm using the 1x3 frame up to here and across and down. And in this drawing, I had to add a piece here, a double thickness. But now I'm starting to think, as I was saying earlier, that this piece here will go all the way up to the top of the radiator. Same thing on the other side. So I'm going to draw a full-size side view here of the front suspension, probably 2 foot, first 2 foot of the car. Right now, and also I'm trying to get the frame. See, I haven't drawn the frame in here yet because I want the frame to be below the center line of the axle. I have some grandiose master plan here how to get the center of gravity down, so I don't know if it's going to work yet, but it just might, so I'll keep you informed as that comes along. So, side view next. I've made a little progress on my side view that I'm drawing here on this 1/8 inch piece of smooth hardboard. I use the rear part here. I'm working on the rear axle and frame, and then the front part here I'm drawing on the front of the frame. Eventually, this drawing, when I'm happy with the design and I think it's what I'm going to build, I'll draw this full size on an 8-foot sheet. This one's only about 5 feet right now. So I got some things to show you here, but to recap, you recall I did this drawing and then a little bit better scale version of where I thought I was heading with it. Then drew it up 3 inch to the foot, see how it looks, and then I tried to draw it out here on the hardboard. But before I show you this, I did a sketch here, kind of a little ISO and a top view to help you understand what this side view looks like. Okay, so alright, so here's the chassis coming in here. It's a 1x3 and a little cross brace. And then, you know, in the photographs as I'm looking at the car, it appears that the frame runs uphill a little bit right at the front of the car. So I put it in there. It's out here at about 20 inches or so. It starts to taper to 2 inches right here in the front of the frame, 2 inches. Then, as I was saying yesterday, I'd run these side pieces all the way up to where the curve starts for the radiator. That provides a spot for the body to mount. Here's kind of the body. Aluminum is what I'm going to do. Then I put a cross brace right here. Now this carries the 1/4 inch steel spring perch and a rubber block. And right now I got the rubber block maybe 1 inch thick. It'd have to be, you know, fairly soft, have a couple of bolts through it, and maybe it'd be contoured to the spring shape a little bit. This tubing, this vertical tubing, it could be 1x1, 1x2, 1x3. I don't want it to be too heavy, but I'd like it to be stout because the front of these carts takes a lot of stress. So there's the perch and the block. Now, to keep the axle from moving side to side, it needs a panhard rod. And that panhard rod, let me show you this top view. See, here's looking down on the frame. There's the spring perch and the block. And the axle runs right in front of that perch. I didn't draw it in here. But the panhard rod is kind of right in there. So the panhard rod, you know, I'd have hind joints on it so I could adjust it. 5/16 ought to be stout enough. And it would move up and down. One would be mounted here. The other would be mounted on this side to the axle on the same plane as the axle, which shows up in the side view on the hardboard here. So that's the concept for creating the front of the car. It gives a place for the spring to mount, the panhard rod to mount, and then the way this is built here allows the radiator shroud to kind of capture all of it so that, you know, if it ever needed service, take out a few screws, the whole front of the radiator kind of comes off, it's like a tin can, so to speak, and exposes everything for easy service. So that'd be kind of nice, I think. So, okay, so let's see here. I'll show you this drawing here in more detail here in just a sec. All right, so this is a full-size drawing from my 1 inch to the foot sketches. So this tire and wheel here is 22 inches. All right. So, and the axle is 1 5/8. This is the axle at the center of the frame. That's the height. And I wanted 6 inches, so I've got the 6 inches I wanted here. And then this is the axle at the hub height. So this line's kind of faint. But that's 11 inches off the ground. And that's so that's the location when it's out at the spindle. And then you can see some light lines here. That represents the spring. So here is the 1/4 inch steel, perch. All be welded nice and stout right here. And then I just chose a 1 inch thick block, fairly soft. Then that represents the spring and a bolt, a couple of bolts that go through. And then this is the frame. I've drawn it as a 1x1, but it goes up. Here's the top of the body, right there. And then this line, that's just a reference. This is just a reference line here. Okay, so now down at the, I think I showed you here. This is where the frame is 2 inches here, and back here a little further. It's 3 inches, and that shows up, right here. 3 inches back here, 2 inches here for that little taper. It's a kind of a aesthetic thing for me, anyway. So right down at the bottom of the frame is the axle, right in the center of the frame. So the panhard rod needs to be on the same plane as the axle. So once I started drawing on this thing, I realized, I got to leave a gap there for the panhard rod, and the axle is below the frame right here. So I come up with this little steel plate, which shows up right there. So that's where the panhard rod will mount and keep the front axle from moving side to side. So the rear of the frame, I was going to try to do a little experimenting here, and that's the beauty of drawing it out. If I don't like it, I can erase it or sand all the pencil lines off and start over. But let me show you my concept. So you've seen this one. This is my tracing, and if you notice right here, the frame, which is 3 inches, splits the center of the hub. And that's exactly the way it is on my other 2 carts. But I have this grandiose scheme to drop the center of gravity. So I was thinking, all right, well, what if I just move the frame, down 3 inches? So then, and if you look here, let's see. Here's the center of the hub, 11 inches, and the center of the frame is 3 inches lower than that. So this is an experiment, and it's still above the axle, which is 6 inches. It's interesting to note that to get the center of gravity on the monocar lower, I built a wooden tub that was 5 inches below the frame. So that's how I was able to get the CG down. And then the wood tub came along and tapered up. But in this car, the body covers the frame. The frame is going to be inside the line of the body, and so wherever that bottom of the frame is, that's the bottom of the body. So I thought, well, okay, maybe I'll just drop this down, see if it'll work. It'll be nice and low, 6 inches off the ground. The monocar is, 5 inches off the ground in it. I haven't hit anything with it. The front axle is 5.5 off the ground. So I know it's a workable height, that's 6 inches. So I showed you this, where I've shown the frame 3 inches to the center. Now, how do I get the rear at 3 inches? Because if I just drop the front, I'm going to have quite a bit of rake. I don't want that. I pretty much want it on the same plane. So I was thinking, here I kind of did a little sketch. So I have the frame, and then I weld another piece on top of it, of the same tubing, and then I cut the shape. And then I cap that, with some 16 gauge steel. So now I would have this arrangement here. It's not perfectly drawn, but you see the concept. So the frame still is at 6 inches, but the axle is back up at the hub height. So I thought that might work. Now, there is another way of doing this. Let's see, let me grab this here. Okay, so when you buy these bearings here, you get one of these. I guess these are for go-karts, and you weld them on to something, I don't know exactly. But in this scenario, you would have the frame, and this would mount right here on top of the 3-inch frame, weld it all up. Then the axle and bearing drops in here. So I could accomplish the same goal of having this axle in line with the hub using this. And it'd actually be easy to get it out of there. You unbolt it and get it out. But I got to thinking, you know, when I go to mount the disc brake, I weld the bracket here on the side of the frame. Here, I'll just walk over here and show you on the monocar. See here how the disc brake is mounted to a bracket that's on the frame. Well, if I mount that piece of steel here, now I've got to fabricate something to get the disc brake up to that height. So I'm not particularly wild about trying to create more weight and you know, more of a bracket so that the disc brake is on this plane. So I thought, well, I could do this, and if I design this frame right, the disc brake can be here, still welded to the frame in the proper frame, because the rod comes through just below the frame. So so that's the whole idea of drawing it out full size, because you can see if it looks like it's going to work. Now, if I just said, screw this, I just erase it, and I could go back to, you know, a typical frame going right through the center of the hub. Now that puts the frame at, what is it, 11, 10, 9.5 off the ground. It would be 9.5 off the ground if the frame is on the center of the hub. But I'm going to put it, I want it at 6 inches off the ground. Now I'm sitting 3 inches lower, and because the frame comes back down, the engine is 3 inches lower. Now we've got quite a bit of weight below the line of the hub, and I'm telling you, when you're doing 40 and you want to crank a turn and get the back end to slide way out, it's nice having that low CG. So, so let's see, I need to draw a top view. You know, I did the ISO, so now you can see the concept, and I could draw a top view, which will show this a little bit better, you know, in larger size, so then I could really land on a measurement. I went and measured the hind joints. They're the same thing that's used on the steering knuckles, steering arms, the tie rods, the hind joints. So so that'd be a go-kart component. That's something you can buy. And then you, and then they sell panhard rods. You know, I've seen them in hot rod magazines, you know. But we could make this up out of a go-kart component. And if you wanted to make it heavier, you could thread your own rod, you know. So not too big a deal. So anyway, I think I'm going to work on a top view now. Yeah, and you know, I need to draw this body. I need to move it down and get it at 6 inches, and then let's, you know, because I like the proportions of this body. So let's see. I'll dick with this a little bit and see if I can get it down 3 inches lower, and we'll see how that looks. All right, continuing on. This is fun. One thing I forgot to mention just briefly here is, let's say I decided to run this frame straight back and not have it drop back down. Well, with this particular design of the car, see how the rear body is up high? There's, you know, it's the frame's, you know, the bottom of the body's down here, and then when you get past the seat, the body is considerably higher. Well, I could run that frame straight through, not drop down. The motor would still fit. And, you know, the CG would still be low because I'm the heaviest thing in the cart. And one interesting measurement you should be aware of is the center of the crankshaft on the engine should be, as a good starting point, 10 inches from the center of the axle. That's what it is on old number 27, and it's pretty close to that on the monocar. I did it slightly different. On the monocar, I moved the engine a little further back and dropped it a little further down into the frame, and boy, it worked out good. So I might just continue this straight because it really fits the design of the car better. And then the frame would stop just as soon as I got the motor in there. Boom, the frame would stop, and then there wouldn't be any frame out here. So, okay, so I thought I'd mention that. I was going to a minute ago. All right. I failed to mention that this is the last, this is the end of the second video in the design series. So I was thinking, if any of you guys are sitting on the fence thinking about building a Cyclekart, shoot, jump on in and you can build along with me. I don't have any problem if you want to copy my design exactly. I do this because I want to promote the sport of cyclekarting just for fun. It's a great hobby and a lot of enjoyment. And, if you build a cart, you're going to be the only one in the neighborhood that has one. You're going to be immediately popular. And because I've come to find out that kids and adults of all ages love cyclekarts. So you've got time to get involved because, old number 27 took me 12 months to build. The monocar took me 10, so I wouldn't be surprised if this one took me 10 months too. But during the process, I'm going to try to show you if I can pull it off. I'm going to build the chassis, build the body. You can follow along. I'll figure out a way to show you all the components, where I get them, how much they cost. We'll talk concepts. So it'll be a lot of fun. So if you want to join in, come on along. So, when I get about 25 to 30 minutes of video, then I post it to YouTube. So, like I say, this is the end of the second video. Don't know how many it's going to take to get this design, but we'll just keep plugging away because, I like it. It's fun. So, all right.